All right, good morning. Rob Brown here with you with a lot to cover today. It is Friday, November 22nd. Big day. Happy 66th anniversary to my parents. Wow, 66 years. And Frank, they always said if one of them ever wanted to be divorced, they'd have to take the kids. So that kept them together. So
I love
hell
it.
of a run so far. They're looking to get it up into the 70s. Frank Duffy over in Big Canoe, North Georgia in the mountains. It's probably snowing up there right now. Who knows? But Doug Dean being here with us in just a moment from Birmingham. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers the Dogs. Will be checking in with us here in just a few minutes. Hey, smash that subscribe button, as Brendan says, in the bottom right-hand corner. And just a reminder, it just kind of hits you sometimes. We are live streaming, taping the show, and then you can watch it, obviously, live or anytime at your leisure. Hello, Buck Wade. Good morning. It is an awesome day to be alive. Tomorrow, less than 24 hours from now, guns up, duck season starts in the state of Arkansas. It's a high holiday, I'll just tell you. A lot of people today have mysterious illnesses that are probably keeping them out of work, and it's college football season. Man, we got so much to cover. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, is on with us. One of the genuinely good guys in this business who works. I don't know many people that work as hard as you. You and Jason Caldwell both put out a ton of content. You know, Jason, let's talk about the Dogs. And I've been maintaining, because of that win at Texas, Georgia's best team in the SEC. Last week, you flexed your muscles again. We watched it out at Lake Martin. Let's do some dog talk. I got Jeff Boone, Thomas Boone, Blind Squirrel Sports, all these guys going, let Jordan talk, Rob. Shut up.
Well, hey, I'll start off and say anytime I can be compared to Jason Caldwell, I'll take it. But no, I mean, Georgia had their backs against the wall last week playing Tennessee, had the opportunity to host that game, and they made the most of it. You know, I thought that the offense overcame a slow start. Carson Beck had one of his best games of the year. Shout out to the defense. Didn't give up a single point after halftime. And, you know, it was one of those situations that Georgia walked in knowing if it lost that game, it was not going to make the 12-team playoff. Went out there, made the most of a return home. Very good atmosphere. I'd shout out the fans that were there. A very loud Sanford Stadium. They made the most of an opportunity to be back home, and they got a big win.
Frank, you know, you could probably hear the Dogs last weekend up there against Tennessee. I think what Brendan Jordan just said was right. They came out with their hair on fire. It was a loser leave match town. Hopefully. Okay, Frank, you may be muted, but let me go back to you, Jordan. When you look at Georgia's schedule, strength of schedule, the stat that comes out this week is it's number one in the country. It's paying off. You looked at preseason, those road games at Alabama, at Texas, and at Ole Miss. Brutal schedule, but it's worth something in the long run.
Well, we'll see, Rob, because right now the committee sure doesn't seem like they think that schedule does matter. You know, that Georgia's got the number one rated strength of schedule in the country, and it hasn't really gotten Georgia very far as the rankings. And Kirby was asked about that on Tuesday night, and he said, you know, the way the committee's looking at it right now, the main value of playing these marquee non-conference games, like playing Clemson, like Georgia did to start the season, is the happiness of your fans. I mean, I think that the committee has really not done a very good job of taking strength of schedule into account. I think that it's going to be a situation where, you know, you see what I want to see what happens, Rob. Let's say Ohio State beats Indiana on Saturday, wins by 2 touchdowns or so. Is Indiana still ahead of Georgia? Based on what we've seen from this committee, I think that will be the case. I think that they're going to look at 1 loss for Indiana versus 2 to Georgia when, you know, I don't think that's a fair way to look at it. Indiana's strength of schedule is 106 in the country. There's only about 134 teams, Rob. Georgia's number 1. So the strength of schedule piece of this is my biggest complaint with what we've seen from the committee so far. But I guess the only saving grace is there's been times that the committee has not stuck to its precedent and decided to totally change the way it sees things. So we'll see if that happens. I hope, just for the sake of the teams that play the toughest schedules, that winds up happening.
Well, one thing for sure before we go to Frank, last year when Georgia was number one, I was over in Atlanta for the championship game against Alabama. They went from 1 to 6. This year they're number 3. They lose at Ole Miss and they drop to 12. That's not right, Frank. Okay. Well, I'm not sure Frank can hear us, but Jordan, there's got to be there's a problem with that, because how do you go from 3 to 12 when you're playing Ole Miss, another team that's in thick in the hunt for the playoffs?
Well, I think my biggest problem, I'm okay with that kind of movement after a loss, but I think that you should see some kind of response when you beat the number 17, or I'm sorry, the number 17 in Tennessee. I thought that there was a real chance that with the latest ranking, we would see Georgia jump Ole Miss. Now, I'm someone who cares a lot about head-to-head, but at times this committee has shown it doesn't really care that much about who beat who directly. I thought that there was a case where when it came to the SEC teams, we were going to see Texas, we were going to see Alabama, we were going to see Georgia because of the teams it's beaten and because it has the best win at Texas and at Texas by 15. And that just didn't happen. The committee stuck to its guns. With Georgia moving up, I think I want to say they're ranked 10th, but they are the 11th seed as the bracket stands. I get so confused, Rob, trying to keep track of like what it means, because really all we really care about is what it looks like on the bracket. But it's one of those things where we've still got 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. I think there's still going to be some wild stuff happen, even when it comes to SEC title game race. I'm circling Auburn A&M this weekend. I think Auburn may pull that upset at home and really throw a wrench. That's probably more so for the SEC title race, but it's going to have implications on the playoff as well.
Yeah, we're going down to that game. We'll be in Atlanta tonight. Going to leave early in the morning. First night game of the year at Jordan-Hare will be fun. Frank Duffy, got it all worked out now.
Yep. I can hear. I can talk. My only problem is I'm on a 3-game losing streak, and I just lost the number 1 player in the country in the portal in the recruiting wars. Other than that, I'm doing peachy freaking keen over here. Well, so what do you see? I mean, what is your take on this? Some people are saying it might be better not to get into the SEC championship game. What's your feel on that? Kirby is such a competitor. I mean, if he can rack up and put a skin of a SEC championship under his belt, he's going to want that. But what do you think the take is on this for these 2 lost teams that might wind up being in Atlanta? And if you lose again, might cost you the national championship shot.
Frank, it's a great promo for me because I got a column coming out in probably about any minute right now about that. I think that, it's kind of two-sided for Georgia. I think Kirby Smart very much would like for them to go to Atlanta. I do think he takes a lot of pride in saying we are the SEC champions. Yeah. At the same time, there's no denying Georgia's going to be better off. Their national title hopes are going to be significantly higher if they don't play in Atlanta. And really more than anything, that's because of how hurt Georgia is. Trevor Etienne's out right now. Dylan Bell's out right now. And you look at the circumstances of, let's say Georgia does make the SEC title, which is still possible. There's a few different scenarios that could play out. But you're talking about Georgia banged up, going to Atlanta, playing a playoff caliber team and battling them for 4 quarters when the other option is to, have essentially a week off. Now, they'd still be working and still be getting stuff done, but I mean, it's no comparison when you compare what is in Georgia's best interest if they want to go win a national title. Kirby was asked about that on Monday. He said, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. That was the right way to take it. But if we gave him truth serum and said, what is best for Georgia's chances? I mean, there's no doubt it's not playing in Atlanta. And I think there's going to be a big conversation, whether it's Georgia, Ole Miss probably isn't going to make the SEC title game, but still make the playoff. There's going to be conversation, I think, out of this conference title game weekend of, man, the team that was the runner-up in the SEC title game, man, they're screwed compared to these teams that didn't make it at all. You should try to incentivize making the conference title game. I think we're going to hear a lot about that in the weeks coming out of the SEC title game.
And by the way, if there's any SEC coach I would love to give truth serum to, it's Kirby Smart. That would be an interesting. You'd have to have tape rolling, my man. It would be interesting.
Well, and Doug, jump in here when you can. But Jordan, you look at Georgia. You've already punched out. You've got this weekend UMass coming in, and then Georgia Tech. I watched that Georgia Tech game last night with NC State down in the flats. That's pretty damn exciting. Not a lot of defense, but you could just see it last week coming against Tennessee. Carson Beck, your thoughts on him, how he played, I think his best game of the year for sure, one of the best in his career in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big response and played great. And I think the biggest thing was that he didn't start off strong. I think he started like 3 of 10 against Tennessee. And I think part of the issue was the players around him. There were some drops, there were some penalties, and he got a free play on an offsides and threw about a 38-yard completion to Dominic Lovett, and that got him going. And, there was a story this week from ESPN with the mock draft. I think it might have been Mel Kiper's latest mock draft. He's still seen as a first-round talent, and I get it. One, because there's not really that many quarterbacks that are coming out that I think, are just locked down, got to have him over Carson Beck. So somebody's going to go up there and get him. But two, I mean, he has not played well at times, but I think that you can't excuse that they've struggled around him. I mean, this is a team that leads the nation in drops. That offensive line against Ole Miss, albeit banged up, played awful. I mean, he was sacked 5 times in that game. So people were frustrated with Carson throughout this year. At times, I think it's been warranted. Other times, I think it's been a reaction and being upset just because of the offense. But Carson's playing great. And if you're Mike Bobo, if you're Kirby Smart, if you're a Georgia fan, I think you should feel really good about where he is, given the big games that are probably coming down the pipe.
And I'm retroactively nominating Brock Bowers for last year's Heisman, the kid out of Napa. Watching him with the Raiders, I mean, we haven't seen a tight end like this in a long time. Doug Dean, jump in here with this one, because what Kirby's doing with that team, that you're watching coaching in action.
Yeah. Good morning, Jordan. Guys, how are y'all?
Morning,
Good.
buddy.
Everybody great. Listen, I come to praise Georgia, not to slander them. I think as we've seen, and it's a lot of fun. I will say it's for Frank and I, it's a little more, and Rob, it's a little more fun that we're stress free. We don't have to worry about our teams being in the conversation. So we can just be normal college football fans and hope for better days in a year. But I think the reason I like Georgia, and it's not a heavy nod, but I think they should be ranked higher than they are by the playoff committee. And my rationale is, and I'll talk about this later, Rob gives me a couple minutes, about some fascinating data on the statistically proven advantage we all know about of home field. Well, you look at the teams that are in the conversation, by and large, have not won on the road. They're 1 or 2 losses. I think Texas A&M may be the exception, but Alabama loses at Tennessee. Alabama loses at Nashville. Georgia loses at Ole Miss, and on and on. LSU's big win was at home against Ole Miss. Georgia stands out, maybe the only one, y'all fact check me here, with a monumental win in a very high stress, big game environment. They didn't just eke out a win, it was dominant. So if I'm on the committee and these teams are just razor thin differences, I'm going to give bonus points to the Georgia Bulldogs for that road win. And of course, I can hear one of the pundits now wanting to use the proverbial eye test, which is code language for we will do whatever we want politically. All right. And we'll do whatever the power brokers tell us to make sure we get at least 3 Big Ten and 4 SEC teams in. And after that, it's anybody's guess. But I like this Georgia team, and I think I've seen it over and over. Kirby, when the stakes are really, really high and his back's to the wall, he delivers. And I hope Georgia gets a boost in the rankings. Now, as for the nightmare scenario of being in the SEC championship game and losing, some believe that moving Alabama up 3 spots with that dominant win over perennial powerhouse Mercer, sorry about that, Bama friends, moved them 3 spots up. What that may have telegraphed is they think Alabama's going to be playing, would it be winner of Texas A&M, Texas game? So they're setting this up where you're not going to leave out the losing runner-up, even though they're 3 losses, if it's Alabama. I think right now Alabama would beat either of those teams in a neutral field. So there's a lot yet to be seen. You can bet the phones, the encrypted phones being used by Sankey and the Big Ten and even ACC, Big 12 commissioners are burning up with the selection committee as to what their mission 1 is. There's some teams that are obvious to get in, but the debate will be, to me, over who is in the 5 to 8 range versus who gets left out. And I'm real worried if I'm a Tennessee Vol.
Jordan, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think Doug hit on one of my biggest things. And again, I mentioned I got a column out this morning about the SEC title game debate. Like, I think the committee is going, and I understand this, they're going to be bound and determined to not punish who loses that SEC title game, because this conversation is already going to happen because the debate of rest. Well, Georgia's going to have an advantage, or Ole Miss is going to have an advantage in the playoff because they played 1 less game and had a chance to get healthy. But imagine Alabama goes into that SEC title game. Let's say they lose by like 3 touchdowns and the committee drops them out. Well, then people are going, why are we playing this game in the first place? Alabama should have just forfeited and not played at all. Yeah. So I'm with Doug when it comes to some of the thinking. I think they know they have to keep value in these conference title games, because these conference title games are not going anywhere. The money involved for the conferences, the TV deals, like, they're not going to just snap their fingers and say, we don't play this game anymore. The committee, I think, is going to have to toe the line and try to kind of, hit a really hard high wire act, because they got to make sure these games still matter after this year.
But isn't the solution? I think they planned this. There's an evolution. They weren't able to go to immediately to 16-team playoff. So tell me if this works, guys. Pressure test this. Go to 9 conference games. Nobody gets an easy schedule. You're pretty much going to play over a couple or 3 years. You get to play everybody. And in any given year, somebody will have the on paper more favorable schedule. But shout out to Arkansas that can upset anybody on a given Saturday. But go to 9 games, eliminate the SEC championship game, and have a 16-team playoff. Does that work?
If they don't want to lose the money. But I agree with Jordan. I think the money of that SEC championship game is just too much. I mean, you've got Dr. Pepper and all the key sponsors, Atlanta. It just makes so much sense to have it. I mean, it's been by the way, I've been a ticket holder since it moved to the Georgia Dome from Birmingham. It's probably one of the smartest investments I've ever made in my portfolio was buying those tickets the first year that it came and then holding on to them. And by the way, I actually went up to 12 tickets until Tennessee played Mississippi State, and I had a wallpaper in my bathroom with 8 of them. I couldn't even give the damn things away back there in the late 90s. But I just don't see that happening, Doug. I mean, and look, if you think it's hard now with 8 SEC games, make it a 9th, and we're all going to be walking around here. It's going to look like a mash unit. And then you got Cupcake Central playing friggin' Northwestern and Indiana and Purdue and see, I actually used Indiana from back in the past. You're so conditioned from it, which basically waters down their argument for being in it.
Well, then
if they lose one there, I think they're done.
Then you moved your queen and put me in check. I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna move my chess piece and get ready for SEC championship game, having slew of first stringers that have hamstring injuries going into that game.
Yeah, Jordan. Like, let's throw this at you. The SEC championship game. You're right. When we first had it in '92, Stallings and Spurrier, I know they were not happy. I mean, there was, and also it was December December 5th, 1992, it was really cold. It was in the 30s with about a 25, 30-mile-an-hour wind.
I remember that.
Remember the next year they had it outside, and Florida won like 28-13 over Bama, and it poured down rain. Hence, it moved to Atlanta the next year. Atlanta, there's not a big city in America like that does that good of a job of hosting events. They just know how to do it. But Jordan, can you imagine? Kirby's right, and I'm with you. Winning the SEC championship is almost like winning the national championship. Some years it's better.
Well, look at Georgia. Georgia has, I think, as many national titles under Kirby as SEC titles because they won in 17. They didn't win it in 21 when they wound up winning the national title. And then they did win it in 22 when they also won the title. But I think it was Frank that made a point that I think is going to be really interesting, talking about the 8-game, 9-game. Guys, if I'm the SEC from what we've seen this year and from the committee, I think I'm more inclined to keep it at 8 games because they're not rewarding you for playing tougher schedules.
Yeah.
And now this is coming from somebody I would like to see them play 9 conference games, and that's more so because of Georgia, Auburn, because of Alabama, Tennessee. I want to see some of those rivalries preserved. But if I'm Greg Sankey, I'm saying, why the hell are we going to add another game when the committee's not going to reward us for it, when that's another opportunity, one, for just our teams to be physically worn down, but two, for us to knock potential playoff teams out of it. I think the lesson, and again, this is someone who does not want this to happen, is they're going to say we're staying at 8 games because adding that 9th game and putting that strain on all our teams just isn't going to be worth it.
And using our people here on this show, that would be like putting Auburn and LSU back on because of our rivalry. Could you imagine that game on top of the 8 that we're now going? I mean, it's like the baton death march. At some point, you've got to, from a national standpoint, if we're not getting credit for going through our week after week after week, because we've all said it, we've all got tough games here in the SEC. That's not the really tough part of it. It's the tough part of it is doing week after week after week. And then, you got to go to Fayetteville. And now you got a resurgent Vanderbilt. You got to go play in Williams-Brice. There are no easy ones. You put one more on there, and I'm telling you what, Doug's call of having every SEC team coming out with 3 losses is a lot closer than what it would have been this year.
Yeah, 3 losses this year is what 1 loss 10 years ago.
Yeah,
it feels that way.
Yeah, Jordan, let me throw something to you because I know you got to go and love having you on here on Fridays. It's just, everybody, it's the day before duck season. I'm leaving right after the show to go to Atlanta, heading to Auburn tomorrow and Lake Martin. It's just, I'm trying to calm down, but you just shut down the argument. I wanted 9 games, but you brilliantly laid it. This is like a great court case seriously, if you're not going to be rewarded for the 9th game, why play it? If 1 and 1 don't equal 3, it's not a good business deal.
Or could you, if we go to 16 teams, would that give them the more ability, Jordan, to reward it?
I just don't know that they would because I don't think there's a good case that they're not rewarding it right now. I think that Georgia has gotten next to nothing for playing the number 1 schedule. And again, like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, I'm fascinated if Indiana loses to Ohio State, how far they drop them down because that's 1 loss for Indiana versus 2 for Georgia. And I'm all for it. I'd love to see Indiana pull that upset, and I like seeing Indiana relevant in college football because it just never happens. But come on, Indiana. If that happens, if Indiana loses to Ohio State, Indiana has no business being ranked.
Well, and the nice thing on that is Indiana has the opportunity to shut us all up, don't they?
Right.
Against the Buckeyes.
They do. All right, Jordan, I know you've got a big day ahead of you. You've got to get ready for the UMass game tomorrow, and they all matter. But let people know how they can follow you. And as always, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And happy Thanksgiving in advance. And we'll look forward to having you on next week on Black Friday because got Georgia Tech coming up. Yeah.
Rob, I was going to say, Rob, before I started to jump in, I just have to hear Jordan's quick reaction. Has the Georgia Tech game meant more in a long time, at least for Georgia?
I know that Georgia Tech would like nothing more than to ruin Georgia's Black Friday, so I think that they're going to take that into account. And but I think Georgia will be ready for sure. But yeah, Robin, I always enjoy popping on. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. I want to shout out Frank Duffy up there in Big Canoe. I'm from Jasper, so you probably you probably go to Jasper, get your groceries while you're up there.
Hey, as much as I've been drinking the last month, I might wind up there just by stumbling over there.
That's basically all it takes. But
that's right.
Dogs247.com on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at Dogs247. So busy time of year, getting ready for football. The Georgia basketball is down in the Bahamas. For some reason, my boss did not get back to me on making that trip. But I'll be watching that, be watching UMass, and getting ready for the Georgia Tech game next week as well.
All right, boom. Have a great weekend. Thank you again.
Take care, Jordan.
I love it, man. All right, Roman
He's
Harper.
good. He's good, Rob.
Network. He really is. And Roman Harper is going to join us in just a minute and play this football down in Prattville, Alabama.
I can't say it.
I know.
No.
Well, Roman.
He'll like my hat.
Yeah.
You know, the bottom line is Roman, he's a lot of fun because he'll tell you what he's thinking.
He's good.
He's I call him the truth broker is what I've nicknamed him. And bottom line, like what Jordan just said, and both of y'all articulated your points brilliantly. Hell, if you're not going to be rewarded for the 9th, then why do it? Because you're just
read between the lines, NCAA selection committee.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think it's going to be fun to watch what happens with this committee. Right now, they're definitely getting people stirred up. Okay. All right, Doug, before Roman joins us, I want to hear your thoughts. And when Roman comes in, we'll get it. We got a lot to cover, but I want to hear your thoughts about home field advantage. Great points.
Yeah, there's a fascinating article, and I'll you can put it out to your readers before the show is over. It was written and the analysis was done in 2023, but the sample size from this analyst, he pulled it. It was college football only, no NFL or anything. That's different at the NFL, and it covered from 2013 through 2023, but they wisely threw out 2020 because you had empty stadiums, remember. And the data analysis was 2,200 games. So we've got a valid sample. You agree, Duff? You know,
yes.
math. So does
more
Rob.
than valid.
That's valid. And if anything, the razor-thin margins of winning this year, it might make home field even more critical. And we've seen it in some of these big games, with the exception, as I mentioned, Georgia going to Texas and owning that game because of the way they played. But what they found, and there's a lot to it, I've emailed it to y'all, and this is one you can savor for many shows to come, little tidbits from it. The most salient point to me, which fascinates, we all tend to think that the advantage is home cooking. You hear that cliche. The referees feel pressure to give calls. And you see that, apparent calls for the home team. I see more calls to protect revenue in the SEC and other leagues than I do anything else, if you ask me. But what they found was that, and it's absolutely fascinating, it's all about the first quarter. The home team wins 53% of the time in the first quarter. That is points scored. And they didn't compound it on into other quarters. It's actual points scored during each quarter. And the away team won 47% of the time. So a 6% difference. Now you can't get rich in Vegas betting on that. You're going to still lose your fair share, right, Duff?
That's right.
What that equated to a 4.8 in absolute points difference. And you hear this sort of cliche that, sorry about ambient noise from my grandson. You hear this statistic that it's home field is worth about 3 points in spreads. This said 4.8. And what happened from the second all the way through second, third, and fourth quarter between home and visitor, absolutely no difference in win percentage. What does that mean? One theory is there's an adrenaline dump on the home team that coming out with the crowd behind them, you get a little more juice. If you want to flip that around, the data may show that instead of that, it's more about anxiety and tightness, Frank and Rob, on the visiting team.
Yeah.
But to me, just fascinating stuff. Now, all of this is baked. We didn't discover something that can break Las Vegas. This stuff is baked into the spreads, but I'm not sure that they've, in certain games, certain venues like Death Valley, arguably Jordan-Hare, arguably, Gainesville and Tuscaloosa on a given, it depends on the matchup and what's on the line. But we've seen crowds have that kind of impact on games. And I just found it fascinating and to the degree. And what I want to analyze at the end of this season is, did that reality of the first quarter exacerbate? Is there even, I think what we'll find is there's even more of a home field advantage this season.
And you know what's funny, Doug? I think if you poured into that data and mined down, I would make a wager, as I've been known to do, that the early morning game, the timeout game that Rob says,
absolutely,
the effects are less on that one because the home crowd's not into it. But yet, as the day goes on, as night approaches, with that atmosphere of a night game, especially if it's on TV, I would like to see that you probably actually within that 4.8 delta, that there's probably even a greater vector. Again, this is as highbrow as an LSU guy can get on the night games as opposed to the day games.
And then a couple of tidbits. Comparatively, the home team's worst quarter, without fail in this data, is the third quarter. What is it about coming out of halftime, the home team relaxes? Maybe they spent too much of their adrenaline, or maybe the visiting team is the problem. They calm down. They make halftime adjustments.
And 30% of their home crowd is still in the concourse eating and drinking.
The same author tested, is it just Division I venues that create this? And he found absolutely yes. Division II and III, this difference in the first quarter evaporated. It was almost equal over all four quarters.
And Doug, if I approach this, and then I'm going to test it out this weekend on some bets with first quarter props, but I would tell you, I think it needs to be conference games or an out of conference game that's kind of amped up. Yep. You're not going to get it against a directional team or
no, you're not.
The what we call the Bama schedule fillers. You're not going to get it from them.
I agree with that.
Well,
it's a lot of footnotes required.
Well, there are, but the 11 o'clock game favors the visiting team, just like we've been saying. The home crowd gets there late. I mean, last weekend I was it was against La Monroe, 11:45 in Auburn. You eat early. We ate at Nirvana's on Lake Martin. Doug had great breakfast there and great coffee.
Good place, love it.
And then we took your back way, and you're just like, I went to my tailgates that I go to, and hardly anybody was there yet, and we tailgated afterwards. But I'm with you on this stuff. And when Roman comes on, I want to ask him a lot about, Doug, I think activist official crews. There's no question there are, because when they're protecting, and you mentioned it, these mysterious calls that you get. Let me answer a couple of questions from viewers. Should have asked this question to Jordan, so I'll try to answer it. But is there a specific reason why Georgia is celebrating Senior Day versus UMass tomorrow instead of next Friday versus Georgia Tech? I'm going to say probably because more kids that are there, especially walk-ons and third-teamers, scout team, will get a chance to play against UMass as they empty the bench and get some band members involved as well, versus Georgia Tech, which will be a full 60 nail-biter, I'm thinking.
Maybe it's to not piss off the Rambling Wreck.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest reason, because – I mean, that is a rivalry, Frank, in Atlanta. Georgia Tech.
An alleged rivalry.
Yeah. It used to be nasty, but it's not now. But Brent Key is a serious football coach. I mean, I think he's pretty damn good. But they beat North Carolina State last night. NC State took the lead late. That last quarter was pretty cool for TV. And I just think that, Frank and Doug, that data you gave on home field advantage, there's something spiritual in some stadiums. Tiger Stadium, Jordan-Hare Stadium, Sanford Stadium, the Swamp.
On certain games, to Frank's point. It's not every single time.
And we're going to get into this when Roman comes in about this Ole Miss at Florida, because that is one of the coolest venues in all of college football, because architecturally it goes down, okay? So let's bring in Roman Harper. Love having him on the show. Roman, appreciate
the man, the legend.
Yeah, appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. And you're on the road SEC Network and SEC Nation. You do a great job with that, covering and bringing the game to us. And also, I love the show with you and Cole on Monday nights, Read and React. And it's just, to me, you can't get much better. It's better than the network shows. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I appreciate it. We just try to do our thing on Monday. So, but yeah, the SEC is it's tough. Like anybody can win any week. It's highly competitive, and somebody usually gets upset at some point in time, or a team goes down, or something usually happens that we are not looking out for. And for me, I think that makes the SEC a better league and more competitive, and I actually enjoy watching it because of that.
Roman,
we all, more than anything, we all want to know who your custom tailor is that produces that sartorial splendor that you put on the show.
I love it, man. You are cool. I love it.
Well, I have a couple different people I usually use, but my main person is a fellow menswear out of New Orleans. Some good friends of mine got into that many years ago. But I'm always flirting with other suit people. And usually it happens 2 or 3 times a year. Somebody
Jackaboo. Hey, Jackaboo.
Yeah, every 2 or 3 times a year, some other person from another city will send me a business card to say they like my style and that they do clothes here and there. So it's always I buy from all over. I pick out my own clothes. I don't have a stylist. And excuse me. Sorry about that. That overall, I just like what I like. Whatever I see, whatever I notice, like that's what I go with.
Well, you
Always
are
sharp,
the truth
brother.
broker. I always, that's what I love about when you're on. And that show that you do on Monday nights with Cole Kubel at Read and React, y'all have fun with it. And, we know you played at Alabama. We know Cole played at Auburn. And you make it fun, but you make it interesting, and you make people want to learn more about football. So let's, get your thoughts. And we got Frank's up there, Mr LSU Tiger, Doug's in Birmingham. I want to get your thoughts on Ole Miss in the Swamp tomorrow.
Dangerous.
Florida. That's it. You're a player.
The Tebow game.
Yeah. Let's get your thought. Yeah, the Tebow game. We all remember that one. So what do you think's going to happen?
Well, of course, it's a dangerous game. Number one for me, just because, the moment I start to believe in Mississippi teams, they usually let me down. So that's just my experience with picking and all these other things. So that's number one. But also because Florida's playing better. You got to give them credit as well. They're a team that has steadily improved throughout the year. Right now with DJ Lagway playing, they're a very, very dangerous team. DJ Lagway represents hope, not just for that football team, but for that university, for the program as a whole. Billy Napier is coming back because DJ Lagway. All those things kind of wrapped around. And I heard you guys talking about the Swamp as well. Look, it's not like the Swamp has been some place where dreams come to die. That's not what's happened this year. That's not who the Swamp's been the last couple of years. But every so often they can put it together and be a really, really good team. And we saw that last week versus, well, actually, I can't even say that. We saw pieces of that last week versus LSU, where they put some really good pieces together at times, creatively, offense, defense, doing all those things helps them win a game. But Ole Miss is a team with destiny. Ole Miss has more to play for.
Sure.
Ole Miss is a better team. And Ole Miss
2 plays
should
away
win
from
that
being
game.
undefeated. They're literally
Ole
2
Miss-
plays away from being undefeated.
Well, I'm not going to go that far. No season is just 2 plays.
Yeah, but against Kentucky,
I know that's easy. That's easy to say, but I don't think it's never just that simple. But Ole Miss is a really, really good team, and they deserve to be where they are. And my only take is this: is that if you want it, then go get it. And that Ole Miss is a team that has playoff aspirations. And if it's right there out there for you, why would you let another team come take it from you? I don't care where the game is played.
I'll bet you out of the 12 teams, if Ole Miss gets in, they're going to be one of those teams that when a team lines up against them, they're not going to want to see them.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you on that. I could totally see Ole Miss winning a couple games in the playoffs. I
Yeah.
would love for Ole Miss to host a playoff game. Like all those things are right there in front of Ole Miss, and I was one of the people that said Ole Miss would be a playoff team this year. So I'm rooting for Ole Miss because I want to be right. So
yeah, it took our best game, and like I said, one incomplete on fourth down, and we don't tie that game, go into overtime in Death Valley. I mean, I think Lane has them playing confident football, and if they get into the tournament, I think you're right, Roman. I could see 1 or 2 game run out of them.
What's sounds weird to say when you consider that the head coach is Lane Kiffin, an undisputed offensive guru, genius. He's had ups and downs, but to me, there's some data to support, Roman. I'm curious your take on this. That Ole Miss, more than anything else, everybody likes to talk about Jackson Dart. He's incredible. But Ole Miss has won with defense this year. They're 6th in the nation in red zone defense. Ole Miss, how does this happen? They're 76th in the nation in red zone offense. And some of that might be those Kiffin 4th and 3 analytics that he calls. But I'm not saying Ole Miss can't be explosive. They have been. But I think Florida has a more than a puncher's chance to pull the shocker. It is an 11 a.m. kick, which probably helps the Rebels a little bit.
All that's so very true. To talk about the red zone specifically, Ole Miss kind of sometimes struggles the same way that that LSU struggles. It's the fact that whenever an offense has to always, when you can't just run it in, it's hard to always throw it in. The red zone, the angles, the zones, the windows get a lot smaller and a lot tighter in the red zone. So if you can't just turn around and hand it off, when you always have to throw it in, it gets harder for you. That's why LSU struggles to score in the red zone. That's why LSU struggles to score touchdowns, because they always have to throw it in. Ole Miss kind of runs into that same problem at times when they can't just turn around and run it in. And we know that the games that Ole Miss has had success running the football, they usually have success winning that game. And when they struggle, that's when they struggle. So Ole Miss's offense is built upon a running game first. Then they like to throw it, and a lot of things build off of that. But, look, Ole Miss is really good. And Lane Kiffin did an amazing job of going out, getting guys through the portal and through recruiting, like on the offensive line, on the defensive line, like filling gaps in places on the secondary and all these other things. And man, Ole Miss is loaded with talent. But I think Ole Miss like you said, Ole Miss actually believes in themselves at this point.
Yeah.
And when you go through early battles and wars, you got to win them before you get the confidence to say, hey, we can actually do this. You think you can on paper, and you say that stuff in the locker room, but until you win it, you never truly believe in yourselves as a team, because each team, each season kind of forms its own personality. You don't get to take the successes of last year and bring them into this year's season. That's not how football works. Nothing carries over like that. I'd love that. As this team builds itself out, they will continue to grow off of those things. And that's why I believe in this Ole Miss team, is because of, at some point you got to beat the logo. And they beat Georgia. That was a logo win for them. Up until that point, they had never done that.
I'd like to see a metric, guys, that when a team wins a game and the goalpost is torn down, how do they perform the very next game? Because at Ole Miss, what Lane is trying to overcome, and I wouldn't bet against him. I do like Florida a little bit tomorrow. But Lane that game against Georgia was a referendum on, can Lane Kiffin, can Ole Miss overcome their history and win the really, really monstrous games? And that one fits the bill. But now he's still can he not blow it because there's no margin for error. He's got to win it. And I think the Egg Bowl will be little problem for Ole Miss. This is kind of year you say that and end up regretting it. But I'm kind of pulling for Lane, because I'd like most, if not all, of the SEC to have their moments and be dangerous on any given Saturday.
Look, I just feel like Ole Miss is the better team. So, and if you don't deserve it if you don't win the game, Like there's no excuse. Like I'm not on the locker. I'm not on the locker room. I'm not on the
Yeah.
field. I can't help you go win it. You're a better team. I don't know what else you want me to tell you.
Yeah.
And you're a team of destiny. And if you're going to be that team, then go be that team.
Yeah.
And
That
that's
is
all it is. It
spoken.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
where you roll the ball out in a parking lot, at Florida Stadium, in
Yeah.
the backyard, at Ole Miss, at a neutral site. You roll the ball out there, you're
Yeah.
supposed to go win that game. And if you want to be that
Great
team,
point.
then go be that team. That's my mentality, my take on it. Because at some point in time, that's what football is. You got to go out there and take it, and don't let another team take what's your destiny or what your calling is. That would be my suggestion for Ole Miss, and that's got
And
to be
that's
the mindset.
and that's by
Roman,
the way why that's why
that
you
is
got a
spoken.
Super Bowl ring on too. By the way, Roman, just to let you know, I
Well,
feel you on that.
And I was going
thank
to
you.
say
That's
It's
the
that.
also
Delta
because I had really
2009
good teammates. I had good teammates.
I was going to say that's spoken, Roman. I love it. That's spoken like a guy that put that crimson jersey on a bunch of Saturdays.
Yeah.
That's the mentality. That's why Alabama's won so many championships. Go
Yeah.
do it. Show me.
Yeah. Roman, that is a great what you just said. Go take it. I mean, it's like we found a couple of stray dogs. My wife said they chose us, and you
Yeah.
got to take what you want. And man, Ham's going to be over here this weekend at the club making brisket. So I'm going to tell you something, Roman. You're one of the when I watch you interact with people, I want to tell y'all and everybody watching, he never forgets where he's from. I mean, if he's WSFA TV 12 Montgomery, he's proud of being from Prattville, his mom and dad. That's a big ass deal, Roman. And that's why we love having you on. And we want you at the Touchdown Club. Greg Cotton, I talked to him Monday to come speak to us this year. And so Brad Bellamy will be on with us in a minute from Landers Ford, our presenting sponsor. But I want to ask you, Roman, about Tennessee. Nico Iamaleava is a big NIL deal. It is what it is. But then you've got DJ Lagway at Florida. Talk about these two young quarterbacks and what you've seen out of the two of them to this point.
Well, I mean, just overall, the young quarterbacks in the SEC is what's telling me, man, dude, in another year or two, it's going to be even more exciting in the SEC. And it's going to be even more competitive because it's not just those two. It's like four others that are all so good and dynamic. DJ Lagway is a special player. The way his ability to be able to throw the football, and he just understands. Like I saw last week, and I talked to Cole Kublik about it on Read and React on Mondays, how he understood like pressure's coming on him and it never affected him. That he's still able to throw the ball with velocity, trajectory, like everything you need as a quarterback is so scary. And free rushers are coming at him. He knows it, understands it. So he's going to continue to get better because he knows how to spit the ball out. When a lot of quarterbacks panic, there's no panic in his game. And that's one thing. Nico Iamaleava is another super, super talented kid. He just has to continue to improve on the little things. He's got to learn how to not overthink and just throw the ball and just hit all these deep throws that are open. That his offense is going to get and create guys advantages, and he's just got to be the point guard and help them take advantage of that. And that will come with time and more comfortability. That's how that's going to work out. Then you also have a guy like Lenore Sellers from South Carolina.
Yeah.
This guy has a huge high ceiling that continues to go out there, and he's a much better passer than what the fans or people are going to give him credit for. This kid is ridiculous. He can't be tackled in the pocket, breaks tackles every single week, makes plays with his arms. He scrambles not to run it but to throw it. Like those are the things that allow him to be and he's starting to believe in himself. I don't even think he understood how good he could be. They're just now starting to unlock things with him.
Correct.
And then you got Arch Manning, who's another young quarterback here at Texas, where the sky's the limit with him as well, especially under Steve Sarkisian with his play calling and what they do on the recruiting side of Texas. It's going to be a lot of talent around him. You could just go on and on about other Green, Taylon Green. A guy from Arkansas who probably will be coming back next year. He's another super talented kid under Bobby Petrino's
Reed
offense.
at Texas A&M.
Yeah, Marcel Reed's another kid who has a ton of talent. I saw him make a throw to Noah Thomas this past week. I was like, ooh, That was really, really nice. And he's super, super athletic and knows how to use his legs to get at him. And, in college, I always take the athletic quarterback over the statue quarterback just because college kids aren't professionals. They're going to get out of their rush lanes. And whenever I don't have a good play call, the athletic quarterback can get me out of it. Like I always just give me that one because he's always going to give me a chance. And so that's what makes the SEC so good and really, really makes it really exciting going forward because of the talent of these young quarterbacks that are all going to be playing the next 2 to 3 years.
And
Roman,
sadly,
go ahead, Frank.
I was going to say, and sadly, the potential of what might have the best got flipped out to Michigan yesterday from LSU. Underwood might be the
number
best
one
out
player.
of all of them.
That's not what Kelly needed right now.
No, I'm not having a good 24 hours.
Roman, it seems like this year, and you've covered it,
better
August
watch out for
now.
Vandy.
Yeah, believe me, trust me.
You've covered it all year long. Vanderbilt might be the story of the year on some level, at least if you're considering coaches of the year with what they have to work with historically. But what I was going to say is this year we've all kind of waited for one of these teams, whether it's Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss. Would someone be invincibly dominant? Alabama's had some of those seasons. LSU in 2019, arguably Auburn 2010, not invincible, but a really tough out. And yet, just when you are thinking it's Georgia or it's Alabama, they stumble usually on the road. And let's focus on you're uniquely qualified to be defensive coordinator on how teams can figure out how to slow down Alabama. And it's a simpleton, an amateur like me. I don't have the football IQ remotely that Roman Harper does, both at Alabama and NFL. But it seems like you would sell out big time to force Jalen Milroe to beat you more through the air than with his legs. And yet it's the easy part is saying that. Doing it is hard. But what do you expect defenses to try to do with Alabama going forward?
I mean, exactly what you said. And then when you get in the red zone, understand the quarterback run is up.
Yeah.
And I think Alabama does a really good job of sequencing plays together. Each other. I think they're also learning more now, where
Roman's breaking up a little bit.
football. Hit a lot of deep shots this year. So,
yeah. All right. I want to, and when Roman comes back, I'd love to get his thoughts about, and we didn't talk about Diego Pavia. And Diego has been one of the big stories in college football this year. And
he's slippery. Isn't he?
Yeah, and it's a problem, and I hope Roman can come back in with us. We lost him, but Diego, Roman, we lost you there for a second, and want to ask you, and we lost you. We lost audio for a minute, but Diego Pavia is appealing, I think, to come back for another year of college football. And in the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, we've had guys in their late 20s and early 30s still playing college football. Just curious, Roman, if you think Diego Pavia, if somehow they can pull off 8 wins this year, is he a Heisman candidate for what he's done to elevate the level of play in that locker room at Vanderbilt with Clark Lee, who's an MBA guy, who's where Marcel Reed is from? Oakley McFerrin played there last year. Pretty cool school.
I wouldn't say a Heisman candidate, but I do think this Vanderbilt team will go down as a special team. They've done some things this year that Vanderbilt program's not been able to do before in the past, and you give them credit for that. Tim Beck that was calling the plays, like what Clark Lee's done as a head football coach. Like you just love seeing that, and because of that they'll be able to recruit and get more players. But Diego Pavia is a special player. He's got swag, and that swag has infiltrated the Vanderbilt football team. And they can beat anybody on any given Saturday, especially when the game plays the way that they want it to play out. I think
Yeah.
they've done a great job of Clark Lee specifically calling the defenses to where, we're going to keep everything in front of us. I'm not going to mess it up. And I'm going to bank on the other team messing it up before I do. And so
Yeah.
just not getting over aggressive, not getting too impatient when teams start to move the ball or get first downs and start to put drives together, and just sticking with the game plan. That overall, we are going to find a way to win it by the fourth quarter. And they do that better than everybody else. That is why Vanderbilt has been able to win games the way that they have. And it's been really, really good and refreshing to see Vanderbilt be good this year. I really enjoyed it. I've been talking about Vanderbilt football for almost 2 years now, and I'm starting to reap the benefits of it now. But it's been a
Yeah.
long journey. But I've been on Vanderbilt for a long time. All my producers would tell you that. My co-workers would tell you
Yeah.
that, because every week I'd be like, man, I'm telling you guys, Vandy's just getting closer, guys. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a little bit here. Like and you got to learn how to win a game. You have to learn how to win a game. And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes losing first to ever learn how to get a winning game. And the one more story. I talk to my kids all the time about, winning and losing. And that, early
Bubba.
on in life, like
Hey, Bubba.
all these losses, like it doesn't matter. You know, when you're in sixth grade, fifth grade, seventh grade, ninth, like
Yeah.
if you lose a game, it should not matter. Did you get better? Where was your effort level? Like, life in sports, like 85% of it is the losses, the
Yeah.
practices, the things that suck that nobody talks about.
Yep.
Like that's 85% of it. And are you willing to do the 85% all the time with effort and enthusiasm to reap the benefits of 15% of the winning, the trophies, the accolades, the newspaper write-ups?
Yep.
Like that's only the joys, like that's 15% of it. The
Yeah.
85% of it is what you got to focus on all the time, right? Which is not going to be the joys. That's what you do when nobody's watching. Like that's what sports is. And so learn from that 85%. And when you do that, you'll reap the benefits of the 15.
When we
Let me
That's
let
what
interview
Brad.
Vanderbilt
new
is.
Yeah.
when we
Let me let
interview
Brad.
new hires, we want to know exactly what their biggest failure was, not their biggest success.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
where
I
you
want to
learn.
bring Brad Bellamy in here real quick. Brad is Landers Ford Memphis.com. That's our presenting sponsor of the Touchdown Club of Memphis, Roman. And Brad is an Alabama guy and a Memphis guy, loves college football. And Frank will be back in with us in just a minute. We're going to get more questions. I know you, Brad, you love college football. So Roman Harper, that was the best thing I think I've heard on a show in a long time, because 95% of life is showing up with a positive attitude. That's it.
Right.
You're right. Brad, jump in
No,
here.
that was great insight. That was great insight, Roman. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
So what's your go-to restaurant in New Orleans, man? You spend a lot of time with the Saints. What's your go-to?
Well, I live in the warehouse district, so any place I can walk to is always a good time. Um, it just depends on what I'm wanting. Like it's look, if you own a restaurant in New Orleans, you got to be good, or you ain't gonna last. Like that's just
Yeah.
life, and so it's highly competitive, and you got to have a vibe and all these other things. So it just depends on my feel of what I want that night, or when I'm in town, what am I feeling? I usually a go-to for me is usually I love Desi Vegas because Desi's my guy, and the food's amazing. Or Mr. John's, it's the same place, just different
Yep.
places. And then Pesh for is a seafood place that I love because it's close to my house or my condo in the city, and so it's always great. And I get the fish sticks. With everybody thinks like, what fish sticks? They're absolutely to die for. I eat like 3 or 4 of them, so
That's
it's
awesome.
just what I get down with.
So, hey, what kind of psyche is there for a team with LSU coming off the loss to Florida, going into the game, Vandy, getting more than they've had? What's the psyche for the team, the coaches, after you just have this big announcement, number one recruits not coming to you anymore? Is there an impact in the locker room? Is there an impact more with the coaching staff? Or how does that kind of play out when you see things like that happen?
The answer, honest answer is we will see. Because those things don't matter until they matter. And so it's like a little thing. So on the outside, well, they will project that it does not matter. that it's a player that's not in this locker room. It's a player that's not here. So you don't coach players that aren't here. You don't coach for a style when you're not coaching for a player that's not around. You coach the players that are in the room. And so operations will still work the same. Now, people like me on the outside looking in, you definitely say it's a thing, right? And that things like that definitely can hurt them. And we'll definitely have people on the outside looking in say, oh, I don't know if the ship's heading in the right direction at this point. Even though I love Brian Kelly as a head coach, I think he's an amazing head coach. I think he's really, really good. But some of the things they do definitely have to be retooled because you have too much talent on the offense to not score touchdowns. And so that's where I think that they're really, really losing at. And then also on the defensive side, I think they have to recruit and get better talent. I don't think they're good enough in enough positions with enough depth to be challenging all the time on in the SEC.
Yeah. All right, Roman, I know it's about we kept you long, and thank you so much for being with us. And I think, Doug, you had one more question before you go, but look forward to your next visit and hope you can come to Memphis because I know the Touchdown
Thanks,
Club
Rob.
people would love to have you on here. But, Doug, do it. And absolutely, Roman. Doug, you're muted. Okay, Doug, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Rob, Roman, we love you on air. You bring some really high football IQ analysis to it, and you're fair. Now November 30th. I don't expect you to be fair that particular day, if you know what I mean.
Good. I'm nervous. That game makes me so nervous. Anytime nobody thinks Auburn has a chance is exactly when they have a chance. This is like,
yeah, you never know.
So I wish Auburn had 8 wins. So then we like, oh, okay.
I just know if it cut.
No,
hey, I know if it cut.
Y'all can go ahead and look past that one, Roman. Feel free to look past that one.
If it comes down to one last play, the only thing I can assure you is they won't be rushing 2. That I do know.
Thank you. God almighty. A spy on 4th and 31. Brilliant. You're outstanding, Roman. Thanks for all your work.
Yeah, and look forward to it. Have a great weekend, Roman, and happy Thanksgiving in advance.
Who dat, brother?
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Who dat, man? I appreciate coming on with you guys all the time. Rob talks to me all the time. I appreciate you guys being honest with me and always complimentary because you talk about how honest and truthful I am. I've met some Kentucky fans last night. It's a lot of Kentucky people here in Austin as well. It was just saying that I am the sense of calm and confidence, and I'm honest on TV. Yeah. That's how I come across, and that's who I am as a person. So I appreciate you guys.
You are real, and we appreciate that very much. Go to Cisco's if you like some good Tex-Mex breakfast. Try it out in Austin. Keep it weird is their motto. All right,
that is. You keep it weird, baby. Y'all be good.
All right, you too. I tell you what, we lost Brad Bellamy.
There's Brad.
Brad back.
Yeah. Let me say something real quick. Brad, we got to get him to the Touchdown Club. I've got him in touch with Greg Cotton, but he's just. I've been around him a lot at media days and all. He will go up and talk to, especially when the local Alabama stations, WSFA, TV 12. He's never forgotten where he's from. Just a good, solid guy, and knows his football. And Doug and Frank, everybody on here knows it. High football IQ. Hey, tell us real quick. We're going to be kind of wrapping up here, not too shortly, but we got to get on the road to Atlanta. But what's going on out there at LandersFordMemphis.com? I know there's a lot. You got a gigantic lot full of vehicles.
Man, and Rob, I'm getting a little feedback too. I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Yeah, not sure where that music's coming from. Yeah,
it's not here.
Yeah. Okay.
But, hey, man, as we spoke about last week, we got unbelievable deals.
Please turn that off.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right, we're good now. Man, we got unbelievable deals going on, especially Bronco F-150. And as we touched on, Ford launched this Power Promise. We've had more activity in the last 7 days since they launched new incentives on Lightning and Mach-E. Installation included with a level 2 charger at your house, 0 for 72, and then also really good lease deals if somebody wants to do a 3-year lease. So we've had a lot of activity, and it's been really exciting to see as people start to embrace just that driving experience and what it's like not to have to go to a gas station.
Yeah, and I heard Mr. Ritchie talking Monday night about the EVs and all the different options that you've got out there. And like I'd say, I drive an F-150. It's like driving a car on the road and off road. It is a badass truck. Absolutely love it. And those Broncos, Frank, if you're looking to get a Bronco, go try one out. I mean, Landers, they'll deliver anywhere, but just the main thing is out there at Landers, gigantic service department, Brad, and you're open 7 a.m. Monday through Saturday till 6 for service. And the other thing is the sales team out there. I try to tell people, ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager, and you'll get them started with the salesman and all. So that part of it, people get anxious about buying cars. Tell them how easy it is.
Man, we try to do the best experience possible. I had a lady I talked to yesterday. She went somewhere else, and her husband's in a memory care unit. She's just trying to get an experience where she can get in and out of vehicles, not have somebody trying to sell her each one. Just wants to have some patience. And so she's coming out here this morning for us to work with her. And that's the goal. Is we're not a high pressure environment. We really want to take care of people, help meet their needs as much as we can. Talk about the different programs we got, the things that Ford offers, the things that we offer. We offer pickup and delivery. We offer mobile service because it's important for us. We want to meet you where you want to be met. If you want to get your service done, you don't want to have to come into the dealership. We want to come get your car, bring it in, take care of you, enjoy the comfort of your own environment. I'm very much aware of the experience that people have when they come to a dealership. There's a level of fear. Am I going to get taken advantage of? How much is this going to cost me if they're in service? We want to try and alleviate as much of that as we can, to give them a comfortable experience and try to take care of them, and meet their needs. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be specialists that understand what they're wanting and try to put them in the right situation, whether it's a payment, whether it's a budget, or whether it's just the comfort and experience they want to have. I got to meet Scottie Pippen Jr. last night at a Grizzlies event. Found out he's a Bronco Raptor owner. And so I was talking to him about, Bronco off-roading. He was like, man, I'm not going to take my Raptor off-road. I said, that's the best thing about it. You get to go to Vegas. They got a complete course open for Bronco Raptor customers. And you get to beat the crap out of a Ford Bronco Raptor. You ain't got to worry about taking yours off-road. But you do get to see how bad that vehicle is if you do.
Yeah. I got you. Well, look, folks, they're open every day of the week except Sunday. LandersFordMemphis.com, the number one Ford dealership in the Mid-South. And Brad, like y'all say, if you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, what?
Thank you much.
There you go. And hey, Brad, we call it in our agency solving, not selling. And that's that approach. And that you'll get rewarded, obviously.
I love it.
And hey, Rob, one thing too, because I didn't get a chance to say this last week, but you talked about Hewitt and Dunn during the end of the show. I'm with the Collier Education Foundation, and man, they help sponsor. We had a big gala event a couple weeks ago, and they sponsored that as well. A great local partner here in Collierville, and glad to see that they're also helping support your show because they do great work down there at Hewitt and Dunn.
They really do. Charles and Laura are phenomenal people. They really are. And again, what Landers is in the Memphis and the Mid-South community, the Landers Bowl, Houston High School, Collierville High School.
Tonight, round two.
Round two. And that means a lot that you invest in the community. And again, wherever you are in our vast audience, they will deliver anywhere. Go to LandersFordMemphis.com. We lost Doug. Hopefully he'll come back. But let's wrap up here the last few minutes. Frank, let's pick 3 games. I know we wanted to do 3 games that you like and Brad likes, and then we'll kind of wrap it up for this weekend because I want to say all of our sponsors at Sidelines.live, Winter Timber Outdoors, less than 24 hours. Duck season starts, okay? I mean, 'twas the night before duck season, and I've got to be on the road after the show to Atlanta to go see Mallory and Tyler and the granddaughter Chandler, but I am going to get to head to Auburn tomorrow for the A&M game and see Frank and Doug and Billy. And
it'll be fun.
Winter Timbers, man, all the shooting sports. They got over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store. They got a staff full of people there in Athens, Alabama. That's the home store. Been there about 5 years. They've got right now Rete Masimara, GPS, BOGO, buy one, get one, Black Friday special. But what they've got in there, they're a huge Sitka dealer. They've got all kinds of gear. They've got deer stands. They've got decoys. They have a staff, though, full of people that know what they're doing. They're going to grow in the footprint that is the SEC. They broke ground last week on a new store in Auburn, out on Opelika Highway by the mall. Look, Winter Timber, check them out. Go there. They're great folks to deal with. They know what they're doing. They'll get you in the right products. And again, say, as we said about Hewlett and Dunn, open Monday through Saturday. Now, after Thanksgiving, starting on Black Friday, Saturday, that Sunday, they will be open noon until 5 on Sundays. And they have unbelievable clothing, Duckhead, Barber, Filson, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots, Charles Hall, Laura Hall, J.M. Huffman, Raven, Squidward, the whole crew out there. It is a great experience to go out there. Stop by Landers, get a new vehicle on the way to Hewlett and Dunn, the Collierville double fecta. That's what we call it. All right, Frank, give me your top three, and Brad, your top three, and we'll wrap it up.
Now, the way that my last month has gone, you might want to go against my picks.
Opposite everything.
I've gotten my ass kicked 3 times, and I just lost the number 1 ranked recruit in the nation. So I'm not doing too well, but I will give you, I do believe Texas is going to beat a snot bubble out of Kentucky. Texas has to keep the pressure on. I think that's a good play. My other play that I would probably give you is I like Colorado giving up only 2.5. I think they're gonna roll. I think Deion's got them playing great. And then my only third pick would be is if you play the Florida State Charleston Southern game where they're 1-9 and 1-10. That is a call for help called Gamblers Anonymous. That is my third pick of the weekend. That might be the best play. So if you even consider putting a play on that, get professional help.
Get help. All
That's
right,
like
Brad.
betting on the MAC. That's like betting on the MAC games midweek. I mean, it's brutal to pay attention to. You try to watch them, you're like, oh, this sucks. Why did I even put money on this stupid?
Brad, I remember one night at the fraternity house at LSU in like 1982 that I had a double up to get down to get back, and I was playing USA versus UAB basketball on a Sunday night. That is truly a call for help.
That's a problem. That's a problem. Guys, I like Bama minus 13.5 against Oklahoma. I'm nervous by saying that because that means it's going to be close. I do feel like either the Florida game or the Alabama game is going to be closer than we expect. I don't know which one, but I do believe one of those two games is going to end up being a lot closer than we expect it to be. I could see A&M doing the same thing they did like against South Carolina. If Auburn doesn't turn the ball over, I think they got a real chance in that game. Obviously, a 2.5-point spread is close. Those aren't my top picks, though. I really like going out of the SEC. Minnesota at home, plus 11.5 against Penn State. I think that's a good play. I like Indiana to keep it close against Ohio State as well. I had Colorado on my call sheet. I got it minus 2.5. But if we're going to stick in the SEC, Missouri minus 7.5. Mississippi State's not very good. And the last time I thought they were going to show up, it was against Arkansas. And I was
Me too.
Started my 4-week landing page of losing every Arkansas game, whether I pick them or I don't pick them. So,
yep.
So I'm going to go Missouri minus 7.5. What about you, Rob? What do you think this week?
I mean, I like what I like Alabama at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's offense is dysfunctional. They're like trying to, fire up your grandfather's old piece of crap truck. It ain't going to happen. Okay. It's not going to happen. I like Alabama to cover there. I'm going to take Auburn to cover. They're finally going to play a full 60 at home. It's a night game, but I don't like A&M on the road that much. So I like Auburn at home. So I guess the third one that I like, I'm in Mississippi State. They haven't played well all year. They're going to be good with Jeff Lebby. They're getting some recruits, their offense. But, Missouri, what is Missouri playing for now? Pride? Pain is temporary. Pride is forever. I'm not sure what Missouri is. So there's just the game that I'm going to talk about, Indiana, Ohio State. I think Ohio State is going to make a statement tomorrow. But does that get Indiana out of the playoffs? I'm going to take Ohio State over Indiana to cover in that one. That'll be
Woo!
Yeah. Don't disrespect Kurt Signetti and Indiana, but they've only won 9 games twice in their history, 1948 and 1967 at Indiana. And I like Ohio State desperate because they spent $20 million on that roster to get where they are. In the Big Ten, they're where they are because 80% of the TV sets in America are in their backyard, in the footprint of the Big Ten or the Big 20 or whatever it is. So I look for Ohio State to make a statement tomorrow and win big.
That half point might come into play. I'm just letting you know, 10.5 is a hell of a lot different than 10. So I don't know, man. Giving up 10.5 would scare me. I'm kind of on Brad's side. I would take the points in this. I don't think Indiana's going to beat them, but I think you could get a backdoor cover on a field goal or a touchdown late.
Yeah, the other interesting one tomorrow is the Army Notre Dame game.
Oh,
I got absolutely destroyed by picking Navy.
Yeah,
so
I was with you on that. The six turnovers.
But if Army holds on to the ball, I mean, it's probably going to be a low-scoring game. Army's defense is pretty good. I could see a cover there. I mean, shoot, last week Virginia backdoor covered against Notre Dame because they didn't do anything in the second half. So, but we'll see, man. I think we're going to find out if Army's for real, if Indiana's for real this weekend. And if they keep those games close, I mean, if Army keeps that game close, they win the American. I think they're in. I think Boise State has a really good chance of losing that comp. They have not looked great the last few weeks. They ended up covering last week, but it was a lot closer than that point spread ended up turning out with San Jose State.
Yeah. And look, last weekend, who had Kansas beating BYU? Now, they had beaten Iowa State, who at one point was 5-0, 6-0. Golly, and what the world we live in now, Memphis fans are pissed off that they're going to be 9-3 or 10-2 in the regular season. Brad, you and I know not too long ago, if you went to Kroger and they said paper or plastic and you were a fan, you just give me the paper, give me a bag. It was horrible. But now they have raised, thank you, Tommy West, when he left the Memphis job, he said, look, if you ain't going to fund the program, shut her down. I'm tired of this. Yeah. He said, you got to fund this program. I know Dr. Bill Hargrave quite well, former dean of the College of Business at Auburn. He's the president at the University of Memphis. He is working behind the scenes as hard as anyone I've ever seen in my life as a university president. Tulane, Holman Stadium, God almighty, Army. Guys, just as a regular fan, let's just pretend you are Floyd R. Turbo American, Brad, out in Olathe, Kansas, and Frank, you are Theodore Nietzsche in Slapout, Alabama, and you're just a fan of football. How much are you loving this season? I mean, we're going into week 13. We don't even know who's going to Atlanta. We got 5 or 6 teams that think they are. How much better can it get?
Well, I loved it at 6-1 going to Texas A&M. Now I'm just freaking enduring it, just trying to get to the finish line. Honest to God, recruiting day can't come quick enough. I mean, we got oil spewing all over, but no, it's been an interesting college football season. It really has. And look, you think it's interesting now? Wait till the 12-game playoff starts. I mean, we're going to be on an uncharted territory. It's going to be must watch. And I would tell you, even though my team's not going to be doing it, I wouldn't mind being in a home field for one of those very first home playoff spots. You talk about an electric atmosphere, a whiteout in Penn State. Even if it was in Indiana, even if it was in Bloomington in late December, it would be a hell of an environment to be in for college football.
Yeah, Brad,
man, think about how much those tickets are going to go for in Indiana. I mean, it's going to be because whoever goes. If they end up hosting a game, whoever is the road team is going to come out in droves for that game.
No doubt.
I mean, and that's a small stadium. And when you compare it to all the other stadiums that could host a game, it's not very big. I mean, that's going to be a ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It is just an awesome weekend coming up here. Week 13. We'll be back Monday. We've got Coach Ellis Johnson will be on with us to break down the games. Alyssa Lang from SEC. Out. Yeah, Alyssa Lang from SEC Network will be on with us Monday. Ken Capps will be checking in from Texas. Dave Tompkins will join us. Lot to cover, folks. But look, thank you, Brad Bellamy and LandersFordMemphis.com. Frank, Doug.
We're heading to the Plains
Harper,
tomorrow.
Jordan Hill. We're going to have fun. I hope Doug wasn't
Loveliest village.
I think he had to go to work, but it was an awesome show. Executive producer Brendan Martin. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Again, happy 66th anniversary to my mom and dad, Bob and Shirley Brown.
Happy anniversary.
And tomorrow, happy birthday to Mallory. So we're going down there to see you. And everybody have a blessed weekend. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. God bless America. Go make something great happen. You know what I'm talking about. See you Monday.
Rethink that gumbo, Bryce. Rethink that gumbo, brother. All you can eat.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.